Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Tim Podesta. Tim has been training with us on World Hydrogen Leaders for, I think you said it, 4 years just now, haven't you? So yeah, it's been a long
This is
time.
this is the fourth year, so
Yeah,
it's passed quickly, but there's been
yeah. When you're having fun,
yes
and
a lot of areas we've covered, which has been
a lot
great.
of areas, and your kind of area of expertise. I guess your background was 35 years in BP, looking at operations. Obviously, you're an engineer, worked a lot on big projects on gas. So clearly a lot of crossover with hydrogen. So a lot of your courses have been looking at the investment case and project management for large scale hydrogen projects. And so obviously, we're at the beginning now of Jan 2024. We've got our incoming, I said, portfolio of courses for, I guess, stretching before us for the next 6 months. So, what are your thoughts of the industry as the industry is developing, and also obviously been developing our sort of portfolio of courses to help people, I guess, get through some of the pain points. So, yeah, give us a sort of a summary of where we are and
Yeah,
how you're helping.
yeah. So certainly over the last 3 years, and the courses I've done have focused on the investment case for hydrogen and also project development best practices for hydrogen. And in both those areas, the industry and the general knowledge has matured hugely, partly through people getting involved, actually doing projects, looking at investment cases. We're seeing some projects starting, but we're seeing a lot of projects, what I call in the engineering development phase, looking for funding.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, the evolution of the education that's required, it needs to take that into account and focus on particular issues, particular opportunities, but also take into account the learning that is going on from particular examples.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's been a lot of commentary around the projects. Well, not a huge amount of projects have crossed the FID line, as it were. I tend to see that as as a good thing, as in terms of obviously it's going to take time for these projects to cross the line, particularly with some of the new challenges. These are new projects combining existing technologies, but in new ways. And is that how you're seeing it in terms of some of the intricacies that there are going to be engineering challenges to overcome, and that they need to be overcome well in order to be able to access finance and certainly be able to look at doing larger scale, big scale projects.
Yes, well, and focusing right down to one of the key areas of technology development, which is getting huge attention, but it's the core of clean hydrogen from electrolysis, and that's the electrolyzer.
Mm.
And the way I describe it, what we're seeing now is a gap between the hype and the hopes, all these ambitions for electrolyzers to be built, piloted, operate successfully, then scaled up. But that also requires access to manufacturing capability and capacity as well. So there's a number of things which need to work for the ambition and the hope to work, and the gap between that and reality. And in looking at the investment case and project development, what course I'm looking to offer in March of this year is focusing on that as a particular issue, and to explore what's been happening with particular examples and what needs to happen to actually realize realize the potential from those projects going forward, particularly as they look to scale up, access electrolyzer capacity effectively through manufacturing in many different places around the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously I guess the key in terms of we obviously have our live Congress looking at the World Electrolysis Congress, which looks at all of the different platforms that are being developed, and yeah, it is as I said, sort of going to take time to scale that technology. Any technology takes time. And in terms of, I mean, I guess here in Europe, looking at we're obviously moving the World Hydrogen Congress or World Hydrogen Week is moving to Copenhagen. I guess
Yes.
the sort of wind capital of Europe, as it were. What are your thoughts around offshore wind and the role that it's got to play as that kind of core electricity driver to help create hydrogen in Europe?
Yes. So if electrolysis is one of the current issues for, I guess, getting the market moving. One of the big opportunities, which is driving a need for electrolysis, but also big opportunities for creating a future hydrogen economy, is offshore wind.
Mm.
And I follow very closely what's happening in the north of the UK and in the North Sea generally. And the technology challenges there, which are both where the hydrogen might be made, how the hydrogen might be used, how the hydrogen might be moved, so that sort of dimension, but also the challenge of very close to my heart, for having worked for BP for many years, looking at offshore developments, the challenge of actually moving that operation offshore.
Mm.
And alongside the wind turbines, the wind power.
Yeah.
So there's a number of pieces of the jigsaw, but it is a huge opportunity when you look at the 25 gigawatt, get my units right, of potential capacity in the North Sea, particularly off Scotland,
Mm.
also close to my heart. That's where I grew up, and the fact that most of that, if not 80% of that, for it to be valued or materialized in terms of value, even from an electricity point of view, it needs to be exported
Mm.
or converted to an energy form that can be exported, like hydrogen, or
Yeah.
converted into a derivative like ammonia or methanol, which can then be exported. So but those are all mega investments,
Mm.
very much relying on technology and projects being successful offshore.
And in terms of that offshore environment, obviously, yeah, it's extremely tough place to do work. And when you start to think about, I mean, as I see it, they're looking at three different types of configurations. They're looking at whether they should have electrolyzers almost integrated with each of those massive, turbines, whether they should be sending electricity to hubs or energy islands, and obviously I think the Danish have got some blueprints around it, creating some fake energy islands. The Germans have got Heligoland, where they're looking at basing their electrolyzers, or indeed whether the electrolysis process should be fully onshore. I guess those different configurations are still all. I guess the most challenging is obviously doing it offshore, but it obviously has the advantage of being easier to ship hydrogen, and indeed cheaper economics if you're not having to connect each wind turbine with electricity cables. Is that the big kind of engineering challenges that people are looking at in terms of that basic configuration?
Yeah, and those are very much the choices that people are looking at. And in May, I'm doing my other course, which is looking at unlocking the potential from offshore wind, and those are very much the examples that I'll be looking at with a investment case, business case, and project development view of what's actually happening today, to see what we can learn from that,
Yeah,
and what needs to happen going forward to
yeah,
for the that potential to be unlocked. And it's going to take time, and those choices around whether to make hydrogen offshore, if so, how to gather it. Clearly, moving hydrogen, the best way to move it is in the pipeline.
mhm,
But then if you make electricity offshore and bring it onshore, then there may well be a market for that electricity. So that electricity hydrogen sort of balance, both in terms of market, but also in operability, becomes part of the equation. And
mhm.
this idea maybe even of storing hydrogen offshore as part of the solution, that's all fascinating area to look at, and an area of massive opportunity and investment potential.
Yeah. Yeah, and also leads on to think about some of the complexity around the policy environment that could help initiate that, whether that is actually fit for purpose to allow that kind of duality of accessing dual markets. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating stuff. We look forward to your courses and your teaching, and seeing indeed the whole industry develop. And so yeah, it's clearly going to be some big challenges in front into making it real. So yeah, we look forward to helping people overcome these pain points. So many thanks, Tim.
Thank you, and thank you again for all that World Hydrogen Leaders does to promote that sharing and collaboration, which is so important to develop the industry.
Excellent. Kind words. Many thanks, Tim.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.